Okay. Slight
It's
slight embarrassment. There's always a hiccup with this. I'm learning, but hi, we're here now. Welcome to Misfit Sanctuary Tuesday Talks. My name is Jessica. I am a theta healer, spiritual life counselor, metaphysical minister, and BQH practitioner. And I'm joined by the lovely and amazing Joey. She is an Akashic Records reader and an all-around badass, also going to school for her bachelor's in metaphysics. Hi, Joey. Thank you so much for joining.
absolutely so much fun.
Okay, I'm gonna do this. Hi, Betsy. So
Oh, wow.
we've got, all right, I'm trying to figure out how to. Man, things are wonky today, guys. Things are really wonky. I can't apparent. Ah, haha! I figured it out. All
The
right,
sound of success.
I figured it out. All right, give me just one. There we go. Boom! I did it.
Nice. You did the thing.
Good thing. Hi, everybody. Hi, Betsy. Thank you so much for joining. Love you. Sending you some love in the chat. Let me just say, oh, yay!
Yay.
We got the crew in the house today. That's awesome. I'm gonna have to go back and edit the first part of that video because I'm pretty sure I was just like,
I started scrolling through our old ones going, oh my gosh, look how long we do these things for.
I don't even know how long it was recording. Like YouTube was a little messed up today. Anyway, hello everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Today we have a spicy, fun topic. We're going to talk about authenticity. I do what I want.
Yeah. Yeah. Do what I want. Yes.
Authentically, the importance of living authentically, and what that has meant for Joey and I choosing to live authentically, what it was like as children, what it's been like as adult, how that's impacted healing, and what can you do to live authentically. I remember actually when I was gosh, I want to say like I was younger than 20. I was probably between 17 and 19, or maybe even a little bit younger, maybe 16. And I came across this book. It was the first self-help book that I ever got, and it was Living Authentically. I remember just like, I was like, yes, this is my soul. This is so important. This is so important. So important. And and it impacts healing on a
Yeah.
massive, massive level. What do you think about living authentically, Joey?
Well, I mean, it's just, you said it impacts healing, but it impacts everything. It's just, I mean, really, how do you describe authentic? What do we even mean by authentically? And really just as your whole you, right? As your whole, because hopefully not having to mask. I mean, obviously there's always different circumstances, but certainly not having to deny and cut off parts and pieces of ourselves. And that is a really, really big subject, I think, because socially, that's basically what we're trained to do. So, yeah,
If
so
you're
important.
on the spectrum of any sort, I know for myself, with being on the ADHD spectrum and then borderline autistic, I realize that even with my intense programming to live authentically, which I'll share with you guys what Joey and I were talking about before when Joey was like, this is what we need to talk about. It, um, even with my intense um, programming to live authentically, I still went through a lot of my life masking. And now it's I'm kind of going through this unraveling and kind of grieving process of realizing that although there were parts of my life where I was living really, really authentically, there were other parts where, because of the ADHD and because of the, being on the spectrum, we'll just say that, I did mold and form into something that could be palatable, you
Yep.
know, um, so that I could be accepted. And now, you know, learning to live deeper in authenticity, deeper in integrity with who I am, regardless of what people think about it. Um, it's been a big theme of my life. And so what we had been talking about coming, to start the conversation, when Joey and I were chatting, was we were talking about actually not wearing bras.
Mm-hmm.
And I was explaining how part of my healing has been not wearing a bra. I mean, when I want the shape, I'll wear a bra. When I want to wear it, I'm fine with wearing it. I don't wear one with a wire, but like if I want, say I'm wearing a really nice dress and I need, you know, little perfectly shaped boobas, then I will wear the bra.
The accessory,
Right?
basically.
It's
You
because
need them.
I want to. You know,
Right.
it's because
You want to accessorize, not like you're trying to make it
right, right.
better for everybody else.
Yeah, because it's like really, and it's not good for us. Like wearing bras is not good for us. We were talking about how there
Yeah.
are muscles in the breasts that will hold your breasts up, but when we wear bras, like they stop working, and then we get, saggy boobs. And so what I've noticed since not wearing a bra is not only do I feel like a badass, but but I also have like that perkiness back that I had lost. Um, and it started with real like it was my way to stick it to the patriarchy. It was my small little way of being like, no, you're not going to control me. First of all, why are you looking like at my breasts? Like,
Yeah.
and why are you vilifying my nipples? And
Right.
why are you over sexualizing my
Yeah.
body? This is my body.
Mm-hmm.
Do with it what I want to do with it, right? And so it became this challenge to myself to, even when I felt like, if I felt like, oh, it's inappropriate for me to not wear a bra, I would force myself to not wear a bra because
Yeah.
it was like, you know, like I'm not gonna let this, patriarchy or society or something outside of myself influence me to do something that feels wrong. And then Joey had said, you really challenge yourself a lot. And
Mm.
I was like, yeah, I do. I am constantly challenging myself, which I think is a blessing and a curse, all in one. Um,
I think it is exactly what you cultivate it to be consciously. And if you're conscious enough about it, right, which is what you're doing, right? We're all becoming more conscious. You are obviously going to learn how to be a little more gentle and smooth. And it's just, yeah, it's just cultivating that skill. It's using your natural skills in the way that is the healthiest, most balanced way. I really am just fascinated with how much we're like talking about doing these things, like living authentically, and how much is being super grounded in the physical. Like, like we're talking about living authentically, but literally we're also talking about when you don't wear a bra, physically, your body activates
mhm, mhm,
and gets stronger. Innate pieces are woken up, that we've like been taught to put to sleep. I mean, what if like the most powerful like muscle like spiritually in a woman's body is like the booby hold up muscles? and then we've just been like, oh, we got to wear a bra, so that's the way. I mean, obviously that's maybe a little bit far-fetched, but
No,
what if, man?
what if? Well, I mean, I'll even take that a step further to correlate it to our mouth. Because they say the tongue is the strongest muscle in the body, and yet we particularly as women have been trained to not use that muscle.
Mm-hmm.
You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? So I mean, I think that there's really something to that. I think that there is a, whether it's intentional or whether it's just been the way society has evolved, there's been an oppression
Yeah.
uh, of the feminine power, whether it's our breasts or our vaginas or our mouths or any other part of our body. There's been a really big part of our body or part of our um, femininity that's been shut down. And that's even more why going through this process of learning how to be authentic, having the courage to be authentic, finding out even, a lot of us, I remember being so in the masking of things that I had to really take like a year and pull myself out of the programming. And
Yeah.
like anytime I had a thought, I'd have to go, wait, is that my thought? Do I believe that? Or is that some programs? Is that my mom's voice? Is that society's voice? Is that an ex's voice? Like the internal dialogue that we have to understand that a large, like there's a study that they just did and they said 80% of adults are walking around not in their now reality.
Oh God, yes.
80%.
At
We are
least.
responding. Yeah, we're responding.
I don't think it. I think it's like 98%.
Yeah, I
You
totally
know?
think it's more. I agree. I agree. And there's and I mean again, society is set up to distract us. So, I mean, again, whether that's done intentionally or not, I don't know. Sometimes it feels
Oh,
intentional.
it's just a coincidence.
Right. Yeah. So, when we're talking about authenticity, like I I am a person that, and I was telling Joy this before we hopped on, that I have always had this really, I was a strong-willed child, right? I danced to the beat of my own drum. These are things that I heard growing up. I do what I want, right? And instead of it being cultivated as, oh, she's a leader, right? Oh, she's intuitive. Oh, she has a gift of, authenticity. It was shut down. It was vilified. It was shamed. And my mom even tried to like beat it out of me. I think it was really hard for her to have a daughter with such an intense uh, internal compass of
Yeah.
who I was and what I came here to do. And questioning authority, especially when it came to authority. Like if it didn't make sense to me, I wasn't going to do it. If
Yeah.
it wasn't in alignment with what felt right for me, I was not going to do it. And the more someone tries to make kind of conform or do what I want or listen when something doesn't, resonate, the more that they push that, the more I push back. Like it's almost this like intense, like you're not gonna win. Like you're not gonna win. You're not going to win my soul, right? And it's just this thing where at the end of my life, it's so important to me that I look back and that I can say that I lived in integrity with my truth, and I lived authentically, because I just feel like the worst possible thing I could imagine is having looked at my life and wasted it on fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of all of these things. Now, I'm not saying, again, like I masked ADHD for a long time. I masked being on the spectrum for a long time in certain ways. Um, or beat myself up for being a certain way that was related to being on the spectrum. But knowledge is power, and I don't do that anymore. But there's this big part of me that, like, gosh, what if I get to the end of my life and I look back and I realized I lived it trying to please everybody else? That's like, I really feel like that's my biggest fear,
Yeah.
probably. And so when it comes to certain situations, I would rather do something that feels authentic to me, that feels right to me, even if it might bring other people shaming me, other people rejecting me, other people judging me or abandoning me. Because at the
Wow.
end of the day, what other people think about me really most of the time has nothing to do with me. It
Yes.
has nothing to do with me. Um, and so pause real quick. I'm trying to invite my friend to this live. Is there any you should be able to share the the what the web thing, like the web
Yeah.
address.
Let's see.
Or there should be a button that says share. And then you can
Yeah. So you have to close the chat, but when you close the chat where you can thumbs up or thumbs down, by the way, please let thumbs up. That right next to it should be share, and you should be able to do it that way.
yes. And thank you. Thank you for inviting people.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, please like, subscribe, all of that stuff. My content is being, it feels like it's not being, pushed. I don't know if it's because I don't have enough followers or if it's because of the kind of content, but my content is not being shown in the algorithm. So the more that you like and share and subscribe, the more we can get our message out there. So thank you. And ultimately that's what we're trying to do. We want to help people. And so
Yes.
so yeah, so going back to the authenticity thing, I would rather look back and have lived a life that other people shamed me, but I felt like I did what was in my integrity. Because when other people are shaming me, or other people are judging me, or other people abandon me, or other people, whatever, that has very little, most of the time, you know, and of course there's reflection, like, is
Yeah.
this because I'm being an asshole, right? Like, I don't want to be, for me to do what I want does not mean to hurt people. So if I'm doing something that's hurting someone and someone comes and says, "Hey, the way that you behaved like really hurt me," um, I of course have an introspection of like, is that really my business? Did I do something wrong? And even if sometimes someone's like, "Hey, you hurt me when you did that," and I look back on it and I'm like, I that was my boundary. I'm within my right to put that boundary down. I'm sorry my boundary hurt you. I'm not trying to hurt you, I'm trying to protect myself. You know what I mean? So there is like that fine line, but um the shame, like, that's their
Yeah.
projection of their own rigidity, of their own judgment, of their own fear, of their own shame. That's all a projection. And so I understand that, and I've always understood that on some level. And so I would rather feel and have to put up with that, knowing I did what was authentic and in my integrity, rather than feel my own shame about not doing something that felt like it
Mm.
was authentic for me.
That's
Or,
amazing.
yeah, it's been, I mean, it's definitely brought me moments where people shamed me. And
Yeah.
one of those, I'll give you an example. One of those moments was doing sex work.
Yeah.
Um, Gosh, like, the amount of shame that I got from family, from friends, uh,
Hmm.
you will just say,
Right.
from people I knew, um,
Right.
from strangers, like, and the big thing was, what are your children gonna think? how are you hurting your children? And I was like, well, I'm providing for them. Like, this is how I'm providing for them right now. I feel like it's more important for me to do whatever I can to provide for them. At the time, I was really sick with Lyme. So, doing doing cam work was what I had available to me. I could work from home. I could control um my schedule. I I could I was totally in control, and it felt really good. And I loved doing it in the beginning. At the end it got really overwhelming, but in the beginning it was fun. It was a way for me to, explore the extroverted, the what is that? The
Exhibitionist.
exhibitionist. Yeah, yeah. And it felt good to be able to provide for my children. And then when someone came to me and they were like, so I kind of had this rule that if I have to keep something a secret, then I shouldn't be doing it. If I don't feel like I can tell people, hey, this is what I'm doing, then that's a sign that I'm doing something out of my own integrity. So I had to sit with that. When people said that, I thought about it, and I went back and I was like, how am I going to feel? How are my kids going to feel? Do I need to hide this? And ultimately it came down to like, what do I believe about sex workers? Do I believe we're doing something wrong? Like, am I ashamed of myself? Now, I had already been a stripper for 20 years before that, so this was not a new thing for me, but it was a new thing having kids and doing it, and also being online.
Right.
That's on there forever. There's a chance that my kids could find stuff. I pray to God that none of them find it. But it is. It's out there. And ultimately at the end of the day, no matter how much shame was being thrown at me, I believed in what I did to the point where I told my kids, to a degree, you know, um, because I didn't want them to have a friend come and be like, "Oh, your mom's doing porn," and then be like, "What?"
Yeah.
So to a degree that they could understand it, I let them know that I was doing, camera work. And I don't remember exactly what I said, but I let them know it was sex work. And we had a conversation. They were probably about, I want to say like uh, maybe 10 and 12, around there. And so we had a I used it as an opportunity for me to teach my children about supporting women and about, judgment over what we do. And like it was also an opportunity for me to talk to them about porn and
Yeah.
when it's appropriate. And and because of that, I really believe, because of that, because we have these open dialogues around sex working, around shame around sex, around all of these things, that my kids haven't dealt with addictions to porn, where I know a lot of my friends with kids their age, they're dealing with porn issues right now. And
Mhm.
so it ended up being a good thing. And then I went to my dad, and I was just like, Dad, like, if I keep this a secret, I feel like I'm doing something wrong. And so just telling you, like, in case you come across it or somebody tells you, this is the work that I'm doing. And he cried. He
Oh.
cried not because he was ashamed of what I was doing, but he cried because he wished he could have helped me. But
Oh.
told me how proud he was of me and how I was such a hard worker, and how he was proud of having a daughter that would do whatever it took to provide for her family. And
Wow.
it was really, really a beautiful thing. And so much beauty came out of this moment where I chose to be authentic, even in the face of a lot of shame, even in the face of a lot of my family members really. I think I think that's what put the nail in the coffin, so to speak, um, for them to stop really wanting to talk to me. Um,
Mm.
I think I think they have a lot of judgment about that work, and they just lost absolute. respect for me, and that's okay. I am okay with that, and I respect their opinion because it has nothing to do with me. It's all their own stuff.
Yeah.
And I pray that they find it in their heart to open up and have compassion and understanding and work with their own judgments about sexuality. Because,
Hmm.
you know, so yes, Craig was amazing. My dad was my stepdad was amazing. He's just one of the most amazing people ever.
Yeah. So cool.
Yeah, thank you, Betsy. So yeah, so like understanding that when we do get shamed, it has nothing to do with us really usually. It's all what the other person is doing. And so it's really important for us to make these decisions to live authentically, because when we are living a life where we are people pleasing, we're codependent, we're, having the fear of the shame of our family, or the fear of the shame of our friends, or the fear of being ostracized. Listen, it is better to be ostracized and feel authentic than it is to be surrounded by people who don't know who you are, because you're not being authentic just so you can be loved and accepted. Like, that's a horrible, horrible feeling. That's a horrible feeling,
It is.
you know?
I just from my childhood was a bit different.
Yeah,
um, I mean, I definitely had ways that I was authentic, but it was like almost in the ways I just couldn't help it,
right,
right?
right.
But I really tried really hard to be uh perfect, you know. Basically it was like uh you have the ability to be perfect, and so if you're not, then you're just being kind of a lazy jerk. Um and so
Like, you have potential. So if you don't use the potential, then you're just a piece of shit, you know? You're
and I
weak.
feel like, as a child, like it's like ultimately absolutely it is better to be authentic and be ostracized by the jerks. Man, I'm really trying not to swear. By the jerks that are doing the ostracizing. However, as a child, you
Right.
know family, like I can't it's like you can't afford to do that because like you want to survive and stuff, and rejection could feel like a survival issue.
100%. And that was the consequence, right? Like, my intense um dedication, like, it wasn't a choice I made, it was just the kind of person I was, to be authentic, dance to the beat of my own drum, whatever people called it, ended up like losing security. I ended up, you know, being ostracized in my own home, and being
Yeah.
out on my own, you know, pretty much from the age of 14. Um, and not having that security and that support. Sorry, my cat's walking around on my bed. She's making my little desk.
It's a cat book.
So yeah, it as a child, it's different, right?
It is. And I think also I mean, I look at someone like you and I admire that. Like I've always, you know, loved really strong, powerful women, even as a, young girl. I mean, I did feel like I was one, but I always kind of felt like it would be entirely too damaging, especially to my mother, for me to be that way. So somehow it was my job to completely care for her emotionally, and somewhat physically, just when she was injured and stuff, but which she was injured a lot.
Right.
But I just, yeah, so it's weird that like I was like, oh, I'm authentic and I can kind of be that way, but I do got to be careful as long as it doesn't hurt mom, it's okay.
Right, because as a child, you were kind of indoctrinated, and a lot of children who have unhealthy attachments that relates to our attachment. And so you create there, the attachment was created where you were responsible for your mother's feelings. And
Mhm.
a lot of kids, that's what we end up getting into, that you're responsible for how your parent feels, you're responsible for making them feel better, and you know, back then, like, our parents didn't have the education and the information out that we have now. You know, it's because of the internet that I get to reflect and see how my behaviors are affecting my children. Our parents didn't have that. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of uh our generation particularly grew up, and I'm sure other generations, but grew up really feeling like we are responsible for our parents and how they feel. And then that carries out through adulthood, where not only am I responsible for how my parent feels, but now I'm responsible for how everyone else feels. And now
Absolutely.
I have to shift and mold myself so that they feel better.
Yeah.
Where the other end of the spectrum is, I'm going to make sure that what I'm doing, it feels in alignment with my higher self, with my integrity, with what feels really good for me. And I'm going to allow it to be an opportunity for other people to learn how to process and work with their own emotions.
Yeah.
I think the thing, oddly enough, that um made me not fall in that was, my mom was a drug addict and an alcoholic. So
Yeah.
I it wasn't me responsible for her feelings. It was the drugs and alcohol. And
Right.
so that, I think, gave me not only a pass, but also ammunition and fuel to
Yeah.
even hold tighter to who I was, because, well, you're that way because you do drugs and alcohol.
Right.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I
And so
think
you
a lot of
figure
us,
out yourself by yourself anyway, because she was busy being that way because of the drugs and alcohol.
right, right. But I think a lot of kids grow up with the, you know, and like, especially you. So like, Joey was a straight A student and got the award for not missing any days in school. Like, I'm just sharing a little bit about you. She wasn't, like, you know, abused or anything into it, but it was the default, right? It was, oh, I see, I get the acceptance and the love and all that I want when I perform, right?
Yes.
And when I'm myself, when I slip into authenticity, or when I'm not perfect, then that's when the love and the attention gets, you know, it's a punishment. It
Yeah.
gets, just like,
Yeah.
we're like Pavlov's dog, you know, we want the attention, we want the love. And
Right.
so we're just gonna, like, oh, when I do this, I get the love and the attention. When I don't do this, then I don't get that. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna just do this, even even if it hurts me, even if it's to the detriment.
Like I didn't even have space to ask if it hurted me, if it hurt me, like it was like, so if I didn't perform that way, it was so terribly detrimental and hurtful to my parents, that there was no reason for me to ask if it was harmful for me, because that I never even considered that I might matter, honestly.
Oh, did you feel like you were an extension of your parent?
I felt like, yeah, like I've always felt like there was a lot more to me, that was sort of, beyond all of that, but I was like fitting into this little role, and that role was, basically, yeah, an extension of my parents. Yeah.
Yeah, like if I, because, like, I do remember feeling like I was an extent. My mom, like, would say I'm an extension of her. And so if we're not perfect, then that means they're not perfect.
Yeah.
If we're lazy, then that means they did something wrong to make
Mm-hmm.
us lazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we, whatever it is, then then they took that very much as well, you're something different than I want you to be. You're
Right.
projecting, something different than what I deem as perfection. And it must be my fault because
Yeah.
like I must have done something wrong, which then as children, we download the program. I got to plug in my computer. Hold on real quick. Then we download the program, something wrong with me,
Yes.
right? Even if there's nothing wrong, like there's nothing wrong. We every single child comes in with their own programming, with their own past life stuff, with their own karma, with their own goals, and yes, have parenting and the container that we hold and the lessons that we teach and things like that. I'm not saying that we don't influence our children, but our children are who they are because they came here to be that person and came here to learn those lessons. And like, I just think, that a lot of parents, even now, don't understand that. They don't understand that, the child is not a reflection or an extension
Right.
necessarily of the parent. And
Right.
um and I think, when I hear your story, I think, your parents really felt that way, that that you were a reflection of whether they were good or not.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm sure, especially because your mom had so many health issues, it was even more important to her that the reflection you showed her was one of perfection,
Yeah.
because then she could feel like she was doing something right,
Yeah.
even though, you are a bright light because you came here to be a bright light, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Betsy says, plus it's always what other people think. How will we look to others? They weren't
Yeah.
authentic, even like when it's not safe. Matters more how we are perceived by others. 100%. My mom, one of the phrases that I grew up with in my house constantly was, what happens in this house stays in this house. Now,
Mm-hmm.
there was massive abuse going on, and if I had shared what was going on in the house, I would have been taken away. But
Crazy.
it was all about how others perceived us. And
Right.
I've shared in my story before, like, my mom, a big part of the training I got from her was how to present, and her friends, was, this is how you present yourself so that you can get a partner, right? It was all this,
Right.
because it's not you being brilliant that's gonna support you in life. It's
Right.
how well you can portray
Maybe.
to get a husband that will take care of you. That was the message that I got, you know.
Yeah. I was lucky I didn't. I didn't. I definitely not outwardly, right? Like on that note, my mom definitely stayed in a terrible abusive relationship with my father, and I knew pretty darn young that I wanted her out of this relationship. And let's be honest, I adore my dad, and I absolutely relate to him more. I always related to him more in his viewpoint. However, I was able to separate that from the relationship that they had, and I knew that was a terrible thing. It
Yeah,
wasn't good for either of them. And so, while my mom's like, strong women, like, you don't need don't act like you need a man. You don't need that. You can do whatever the hell you want. You can have one if you want, but you don't gotta. Here she was staying in this relationship with, now she loved him. She had a lot of reasons, but there was, a point in time where she was pretty sick of it. She tried to get out of it because she did not get the job position she was going for, she stayed in it
right, right.
because she relied on him as a partner financially and with her two children.
And that's
So
another thing that causes, that's the authenticity or inauthenticity trap for,
yeah,
a lot of women and perhaps some men, where we, like what happened with your mom, like she wasn't able to separate and follow her own authenticity and become
exactly.
her own version of herself because she didn't have the financial support. And so what we end up doing is developing the programming that I have to sacrifice my authenticity in order for support. I have to sacrifice my authenticity in order for my family.
Yeah.
We slip into that martyr role where I'm going to sacrifice myself so that I can meet my needs, essentially. That can
Because
be,
it's the only way to basically survive is to sacrifice yourself. Like, yeah,
right,
like when I just remember thinking like, man, being human is weird and hard, and I have to learn how to do it. And it's
yeah,
and it was always like it feels not right, you
right,
know?
yeah. Being human is the weirdest
Yeah.
experience. But I think that's the thing is I don't feel like we're supposed to be learning how to be human. Like that's the authenticity thing. I don't believe that it's helpful for our purpose of being here to conform to the paradigm.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean I think even more so, like I was saying earlier, even more so now, right? Like it's just becoming more and more apparent that that's just like maybe that would kind of half-ass work before. Like Melinda said that she actually relates to trying to like be perfect. Like we were told we had to be perfect, and that was the only way to operate in this reality.
Mhm.
However, we're lucky enough that things have changed to where like that doesn't work anymore.
And understanding that if we're always searching for what perfect means, we're always going to be stuck in people pleasing because
Yeah,
there is no perfection. What it
right.
what we're saying when we need to be perfect is I need to, without even talking to somebody most times,
Yeah,
I need to understand what it is, like screening the person's energy,
yeah.
screening their psyche, or hearing through conversations. We'll pick up on little things that they're not even trying to tell us anything, and we'll pick up on it. And then we will morph into whatever it is that that person would deem as acceptable,
Mhm.
try to do it to an extreme, right? And then we're perfect.
Yeah,
But the reality of it is that, like, and this is so cliche, but we already are perfect. Like we are perfect at because we are, you know, little gods. We are fractals of God energy. We are, incarnated from the highest source. We are the extension of God having a human experience so that we can report the experience back to source, and then source can expand, right? And so when we're working on, understanding the perfection, it's really the more, like, if we're going to go for a perfection, if there's anything we're going to try to be perfect with, it could be following the inner voice of
absolutely.
what's authentic.
Absolutely.
And there are consequences. I'm not going to say that this is an easy path. There are times where me following my authenticity, I was homeless because I wasn't going to do what this person wanted me to do. It didn't feel right. I'd rather be homeless and figure out how to build myself up from rock bottom,
Yeah.
because we can do it. There are ways. People do it all the time. Is it uncomfortable? Yeah, but it's like you're going to be uncomfortable either way. So I would rather be uncomfortable knowing I'm doing what I feel right rather than staying in the unhealthy relationship, rather than staying in the unhealthy job, rather than, you know, hurting myself. Like, some people will do plastic surgeries and do all the things, and my hair has to be done all the time, and my eyes have, and everything has to be, perfect. But really, is that our idea of perfection, or is that us reflecting back the projection of what society or a person or a job would deem as perfect? It's only when we can fully be brave enough and courageous enough to fully follow that soft inner voice, even when it comes with consequences, that we can actually achieve this. Again, we're perfect as we are, but like, if we want to, do something to be perfect, I would say that's the thing to do. And I'm not, trying to, like, I'm not a Bible beater or anything like that, but I do appreciate and love Jesus. And I think Jesus is a phenomenal, phenomenal example of what it looks like to follow your authenticity, even if it means you're going to be
Yeah.
attacked, right?
Yeah.
Like, to an extreme degree, to follow that authenticity, to follow what we know we're supposed to, what we're here to do, even if it means that there's going to be some sort of consequence.
Yeah.
So Melinda says, that's exactly the situation I'm working through right now, avoiding and putting aside my authenticity for financial support, basically. Honey,
Yeah.
that's that's the trap, right?
That's the whole money system in so many ways, really.
Right. And so what I would say, and Melinda says, I've always been like a chameleon, morphing into what the other person needs and accepts.
Yeah.
Betsy says, or we look for the one thing we feel like we can control. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at some point, Melinda, if it hasn't happened already, and I know a little bit about you, but I don't want to expose anything because I don't know what you're comfortable with me exposing. So I'm just gonna say, at some point, morphing and masking and morphing and masking and sacrificing authenticity in order for ABC, what ends up happening, because we came here to be the light, because we came here, our intents. If you're watching this, this is you. You are a light worker. Like, people who aren't light workers aren't going to be hanging in this long to hear this message, right? You came here, your purpose, and it can look different ways, but your purpose is to shift up. Your purpose is to manifest the new reality. Your purpose is to take the old paradigm and, like, Rubik's cube it out into this new paradigm that is healthy and supportive, call it 5D reality or new earth. You came here to be a part of that. And in order for us to shift, like, when we shift these programs, when we're brave enough to hey, I'm going to let go of this relationship because I know it's holding me back in this giving up my authenticity, right? This sacrificing, I'm sacrificing myself for my needs being met. When we can be brave enough to let that go and then do the very hard work. And again, sometimes you end up homeless, sometimes you end up in a shelter, right? Like, I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying it's possible. And sometimes you have to, couch surf for a while. But if what will happen, the work that will be called of you once you make that decision, and the universe is constantly conspiring for your greater good, constantly, that is the universe constantly conspiring for your greater good. And so it's going to lead you through college. It's going to lead you down the path so that you need to learn all the things you need to learn so that you can shift and wake up. And then when you learn that, then you're going to help other people shift and wake up. But first, we have to do the very hard things, you know. And if we don't get it this lifetime, we have other lifetimes. It's not like life or death, but it is something that will as you shift, because if you say you leave the relationship, that you're, sacrificing your authenticity for financial support, and you leave there's no repairing it, right? Let's just say you've tried everything and there's no repairing it. You decide to leave and hit rock bottom, right? The I can tell you from experience, it is what you make of it, right? It's going to be your perspective will matter greatly. Uh,
Hmm.
and then every situation you go through, it's going to call of you to heal a certain trauma. And as
Hmm.
you heal that trauma, that maybe would only be seen. The only way you could look at this trauma is if this exact thing happened for you. And so
Yeah.
understanding that this is really happening for you, not against you. And then you get to shift that trauma and raise your vibration, right? And as you raise your vibration, that ripples out, heals humanity, and trusting and having faith that the universe is constantly conspiring for the greater good. But even if you don't leave the relationships, even or the jobs or the whatever, even looking at like blooming where you're planted, what's available to you now? In if the goal is authenticity, but you're not quite ready to walk away from the relationship. Let's look at, okay, why am I not walking away from the relationship, or why am I not walking away from the job? Financial stuff. Okay, then that means I'm being guided. That means you're being guided. And I know that you're already doing this work to learn a new skill so that you can begin doing something that will manifest money for yourself. Right. And so, even where you're at, what would it look like to just baby step into authenticity? Like, learn something that really feels authentic for you, or dress a different way, or whatever it is, like whatever you feel inspired to do in the moment, reaching for that joy, reaching for that authenticity, and just blooming where you're planted, and then celebrating that you're being authentic. It not everything needs to change at once. And
Yeah.
as we baby step ourselves out of these situations, and more is revealed, and more is revealed, and more is revealed, and we get more confident, and we get more confident, and we learn a new skill, and then we start practicing, and then we have money, and then we can go, okay, now I can fully support myself. I no longer need to sacrifice myself,
Yeah.
in order to, but it's baby steps sometimes,
Yeah.
and just bloom where you're planted.
Yeah.
What like, look around, right? Just what can you work on in your reality now that will shift you towards authenticity?
Yes. And look for the joy of it. I mean, really like I want to also be really mindful in myself of how to be balanced with it as much as possible and gentle with myself as much as possible. I've had to definitely learn, you can't just force yourself into it. You can't do a full body cleanse, right? Like you got to like work to it gently. You got to, because I would prefer not to end up homeless, right? So let's, or, whatever the extreme version of something is. So doing it gently with yourself. So yeah, baby steps are steps, right?
Yes, baby steps are steps. And the big thing is, like, so not everyone is an extremist. I've always been an extremist. So for me, it was always like go big and go home. But that doesn't
Mhm.
mean that that's how everybody needs to be.
Right.
And so understanding that the way the energies of the universe works is that if we, first of all, do the work to become present enough that we can honestly look at our situation and go, hmm, I want more, right?
Yeah.
I want more. Maybe the situation was great for a really long time, and suddenly you want more. That's okay. Maybe the situation is shit and you want more because it's shit. But for whatever reason, you look at the situation, you're present, you're honest with yourself, and then you make a tiny baby step, right? Even if it doesn't lead to anything else. For example, um, when I first realized, like, oh, I don't enjoy feeling obligated to do certain things because this person is providing for me.
Right.
What is that showing me I want? That's showing me I want to provide for myself.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what would that look like? And at that time, I was bedridden. So,
Right.
like, okay, I could have gone, oh, but it's impossible because I'm bedridden and there's nothing I can do, and I'm just going to have to be like this forever, which would have perpetuated that situation. But what I did was I said, and again, this, I have to give credit to my guides. They literally told me what to do every step of the way. This wasn't something that I thought of myself.
Yeah.
Say to my guides, okay, what what would it look like for me to move forward with like creating my own stability? And they were like, well, what kind of jobs would you want? And I was like, I don't know. And they're like, well, look up different jobs. And so all I did was research different jobs. And then they were like, awesome, celebrate. You showed the universe
Oh,
that you want to move in this direction.
yeah.
Awesome. Now sit back for a little bit. Trust that the universe is realigning because now you shift, right? Now you shifted. Everything was aligned for the perspective that you're a victim. And
Yeah.
now you shifted into your power seat. So now the universe needs to realign everything for you. And so just
Yeah.
take these tiny little baby steps. Maybe one day it's looking up a different job. Maybe another day it's looking up a different schooling. Maybe another day it's calling and just asking about a job. Maybe it's applying. And just because you apply doesn't mean you need to take it. You know, maybe it's meditating and envisioning what you want to create. It's just whatever little baby step. Baby steps are still steps. They're so important. And when we take baby steps, the
Mm-hmm.
universe just celebrates. The universe is so proud of us. It doesn't have to be go big or go home. It can be
Right.
the tiniest little shift in perspective. Listen, if you've never read A Course in Miracles, I highly recommend it. It's this book right here. And then the second is A Course in Love. But A Course in Miracles, they define a miracle. They say miracles happen all the time. It's just a shift of perspective because really you need to understand the way that we are manifesting our reality is going to be based on the perspective that we have of ourself and our reality in this moment. So if in one moment we shift from victim to power,
Yeah.
then that's it. We've created a whole new reality that we can align with. And it's just about continuing. Okay, how can I choose authenticity now? How can I choose authenticity now? What would it look like for me to step into authenticity or power or
Mhm.
success or whatever it is, healing,
Joy.
joy. Yeah.
Mhm.
And like what Julie had said too, that's a big, big part of it. Um, Trusting that if something brings you joy,
Yeah.
you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
If you feel inspired to do, if you go to do something and it makes you in your like gut heart space feel tight or heavy or bleh, icky, if you're like, oh, I don't want to do that, like it doesn't, don't do it.
Yeah.
Do it. Look for whatever it is that goes, oh yeah, that would feel good.
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be joy, but even relief. Like even just like Abraham Hicks, listen to some Abraham Hicks.
Yeah. I love that.
Look for the relief. What makes you feel a tiny bit of relief? I like to do an exercise that I call whiteboarding. And so whenever there's a decision to be made, or when I don't know what to do, or I've said something that feels heavy, when we feel heavy in our body, that's our guides communicating, hey, this isn't true, this isn't in alignment, like don't do that. Then it's like, okay, well, what do I do? And that's when I whiteboard. And in my mind, I'll close my eyes and I imagine I say whiteboarding, but it's really I create a scene, right?
Hmm.
Create a scene. Okay, what are my choices? Oh, here's one choice. And then I'll go into envisioning and seeing, okay, here's me doing that choice. This is me walking through. This is what this looks like. This is how it feels. This is how people are responding, yada, yada, yada. Okay. Paying attention to the gut heart space and how that feels. And then, okay, wipe the whiteboard, right? Wash it
Mhm.
off. Just clear that vision. Here's my second option. Now I'm going to close my eyes. I'm going to go into that. I'm going to imagine me doing that. And this is what that looks like. And this is how that feels. And this is da da da. How does that feel in my gut heart space? Okay. And then if there's other options, you do that for every option. And then just go with the one that brings relief. Go with
Yeah.
the one that brings joy. And I'm going to tell you guys, I can tell you this until I'm blue in the face, but the only way you're going to know that it's true is if you experiment for yourself. So test it out, apply it to your life, be brave enough to at least ask yourself, okay, how would my life change? What would happen in my life if I choose to believe that this is true? If I choose to believe that my thoughts create my reality, if I choose to believe that I'm a co creator, if I choose to believe that my guides are guiding me through the sensations in my body, and I make decisions and I choose what inspires me and I choose what brings me relief or I choose what brings me joy. Do it. Like, don't take my word for it. Like, test it out. Give it, like, I'm going to do it for a week and see how I feel. And if there's any kind of improvement, okay, I'm going to keep doing it another week, another week, another week. And now, 3 months later, I am living a completely different life because I've done what I felt inspired to do in each moment. I've followed the thoughts that felt good to think. And this doesn't mean that we're going to get stuck in toxic positivity. We're not bypassing anything. Sometimes the thought that feels relief might not be a happy thought. Like with a client, we we use this process because they they couldn't remember if they had been molested by a particular person. And um so we went through and we said, okay, I was not molested by this person. And they checked how they felt and it felt heavy.
Mhm.
I was molested by this person and they felt relief. They felt release. They felt a lightening. And
Mhm.
so then we're going to go with that because that's your guide saying, like, yeah, this is what happened. And and then the healing could begin. So understand that the thought that brings relief might not always be positive. Maybe the thought is, this person is toxic and I need to get away from them, right? So really understand, that it's not just happy thoughts. It's
Yeah.
thought that brings freedom, lightness. And when you can be courageous and brave enough to just test it out, you will see your life transform. I want to say hi, Kelly, Betsy's friend. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We're here most Tuesdays, usually around 2 o'clock. We're pretty flexible. That's part of the way that I function with the experience with ADHD. And
Oh
Joey
yeah.
also is on the spectrum of ADHD. One of the things I had to let go of was exact timing. So
Yeah.
we try to get in the window frame of around 2 o'clock
Mhm.
standard time. So thank you very much for joining, Kelly. I hope that you're getting lots of good stuff. If you have any questions at all, make sure that you write
Ask-
them. If you have,
Or feedback.
or feedback. Yes, we
Comments, anything.
feedback. We can't do this without you guys. This is just us talking into the void
Right.
unless you guys interact. But thank you for being here. Betsy said, I so needed this live today. All of this. Yay! Yay!
Yeah. You
It,
know what? So did we. And this is why it happens. I mean, I love it when it works out that we're just chatting. Oh man, what are we going to talk about? We don't have something laid out to talk about. Inevitably, we end up on some sort of really juicy topic that is basically what we needed to also talk about.
right.
I mean, that's why definitely appreciate it when you guys share. comment, feedback, yeah, any of that, because this is really meant to be a discussion with
Yeah.
all of us. So yeah.
And Joey, just like what you like, you literally just proved what I was saying, right? Like we could have had topics laid out,
Yeah.
right? But by allowing ourselves to be fully present in the moment with what was alive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not what we were saying we were going to do, an obligation, and not saying that there's not a place for that, but our lives end up being so juicy and full and like I feel on fire because
Mm-hmm.
we go with what is present in the moment. And I think like as like we're all feeling this as a collective. This isn't
Yeah.
just us. So this is an example of how doing the process of being present in the moment and going for the inspiration, going for what feels good, trusting that inner guidance. Yes, this is what you're supposed to do. Like beautiful things come of that, beautiful things come of that. And again, I want to be clear that I'm saying that like it's not always easy. It's not always
Right.
easy, you know. Sometimes what brings you joy, sometimes what inspires you, someone else might not feel that way, you know. And so going back to what we were talking about earlier, when other people shame or you know judge or reject or abandon, um please understand that I would say like 90% of the time it has nothing to do with you. And understand again, the universe is constantly conspiring for your greater good. So if someone is bringing that kind of energy to you when you feel genuinely inspired to do something, perhaps it's time to look at that relationships. Maybe it's an opportunity to practice you know like 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 positive conflict resolution, right? Maybe it just is a time to put a boundary down and say, no, you know, I it doesn't feel good when you project that on me, or I feel like you're projecting your feel like whatever. Maybe it's an opportunity for that, and maybe that relationship will grow because of that. Or maybe that person just isn't in your highest and best good to be in your life, and that person needs to go. Or maybe you're going to be the example of what it looks like to do that. And then they'll judge you in the beginning, but they'll end up doing it once they see how much better it's made your life, you know. But trusting that, you know, and understanding that you follow your inspiration, it might bring the haters, right?
Yeah.
But not slipping into people pleasing, going for your authenticity, that
Right.
that's the work.
It
That,
is. And
you know,
and it's how we avoid abandoning ourselves. And
right,
that's fun.
right. Because listen, remember that the external world around us, this projected reality is, you know, my projected reality is different than Joey's, is
Yeah.
different than Betsy's, is different than Melinda's, is
Mhm.
different than Kelly's, right? And it's all the reality that I'm in. And like, imagine that all of our realities are just layered, right? They're simulations and they're all kind of layered. And sometimes they bump into each other. Like right now, our realities are bumping into each other because we are all in the same vibrational alignment, right? But my reality is a projection of my own inner reality, my own
Yes.
inner thoughts, my own inner vibrations, my own inner trauma, and whatever. And so when we are experiencing something outside of us, like abandonment, we want to first look at, okay, understanding my outer reality is a reflection of my inner experience. If I feel I'm being abandoned, where am I abandoning myself?
It's so big.
If you are abandoning yourself, and we do that in many ways, we do that in very subtle ways, and we do it in really big ways. Sometimes the way we abandon ourselves is by not putting a boundary down. Sometimes we abandon ourselves by eating that thing that we know our body doesn't want to eat, right? sometimes we abandon ourselves by staying in abusive relationships. There's all kinds of ways that we abandon ourselves. But if we abandon ourselves in any way, shape, or form, then we will see that reflected back to us. And again, whenever I say this kind of stuff, please remember, there's no shame, blame, or anything like that. It's
Right.
just we have to be able to like zoom out a little bit and look at our lives and look at our behaviors objectively without slipping into criticism of them. It's just this is something that we're doing, and we're doing it because we've learned this is how to keep ourselves safe, right? Like we've learned that, oh, I'm supposed to sacrifice myself so I can get my needs met. And like what we do in theta is talking about, well, what's the healthy way to get the need met? And then programming the consciousness and doing work on the coping skill or the new way to get the need met, and then sacrificing ourselves is no longer necessary, right? Because our consciousness always wants to go with what is actually keeping us safe. And when we start to realize that, oh, even though I thought staying in the relationship was keeping myself safe, now I see this way is actually safer. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to do this, right? And that's how like theta helps download new ways, new programs and stuff. And so the reason why the outer reality will reflect the inner reality is it's designed that way so that we can see what we have active, right? So if I didn't in my relationship with Carlos for the first 9 years, he projected, we didn't know he was on the spectrum. We didn't know I was on the spectrum. We didn't know any of that. And sometimes, if you don't know someone is autistic, then it can feel like narcissism. And so I just saw narcissism, narcissism, narcissism until I did my healing and I realized the reason narcissism was being reflected to me was because I had a wound with a narcissistic mom.
Yeah.
And when I did the work to heal that wound, Carlos and I ended up getting back together. I He's not narcissistic at all. Like it blows my mind now that I used to even see that in him. But I
Aw,
saw it because I needed to work on it.
right.
So look at your relationships. What is being projected? What are you seeing? And then where is that active within me? Right? Am I doing it? Am I, or has it been done to me? Is this what I believe? Like, really start practicing with what am I seeing and where am I doing that inside without shaming, without blaming or
Oh,
judging or criticizing. Because,
because this is what it's meant to be. This is there's no reason to be ashamed or upset with oneself because all this is just what we're meant to experience these things so we can learn about these things. And when we don't, and that's okay too, but
yeah.
when we don't pay attention consciously to what's happening outside of ourselves, we start feeling it in our body, right?
Mhm.
Illness, disease.
Mhm.
So, it's just, and it's all, that's how it's meant to be. And we're all meant to have these lovely experiences.
Yeah.
However, just it's time for us just to start paying a little more attention, just a little more, a little more.
Yeah. And it's another way we can see that this is what we're doing, and we're here to shift from I'm a victim, I don't have any control, um, to I am in my power, I create my reality. My body is a communication device, and we are becoming more sensitive. You can look at the world and see that there is a higher evidence of illness and chronic disease more than ever. And now there is the reality where we get to choose, right? And you have to choose the reality that makes you feel better. There is the reality where I can look at just the physical world and I can say, oh, well, it's because I was exposed to glyphosate. It's because, my mom had Lyme. It's because they're spraying. It's because there's no clean water. I can say all of these things about the physical reality that might be very true, right? But I also, that's kind of the victim side of
Yeah.
things. But when I look at like, oh, I created this reality so that it could mirror to me the trauma, the blocks, the beliefs that I have active that are holding me back from shifting up and anchoring in that 5D reality, it makes me like want to cry. Like, choose that. Choose
Yeah.
that because we are not victims. We are in an ascension, and the
Mhm.
body is becoming more sensitive. The body is communicating, and it's kind of like understanding that there is no dark and light. It's all
Yes.
there is no, I'm not, there is dark and light. There are angels and demons, but they are reflections of each other, the
And
opposites.
there is no dark or light, right?
No, it's all one, and it's just a spectrum, right? It's the light spectrum. And so if at first the light will speak to us and it'll be soft and it'll be gentle and it'll be, hey, you shouldn't do that, or hey, if you eat that, that's gonna hurt, or hey, that person isn't safe. And because of our traumas or whatever, because we came here to learn some really hard things sometimes, we're not listening to it. The light will bring in the dark, will bring in the dis-ease, will bring in the darker side of things, because oftentimes that's what gets our attention.
Yeah.
And so again, it's not about being a victim. Like, we created this reality. This is for us.
Yeah.
And that's again not to say that it's easy. My journey has been like, I don't like, so
Yeah.
painful.
Yeah.
And I can see that when I choose to believe my body is a communication device and I learn how to listen, when I choose to believe that I can either shift up or shift out, when I
Right.
choose to believe that I create my reality, when I choose to believe that this is happening for me and not against me, and I heal, then my reality heals. Then I have a better life and I attract better things. And I'm living a life that I've been working on manifesting for 10, 15 years, and now I get to live it. Like, and it's because of these little micro shifts in each moment of, how can I shift into authenticity? How can I shift into my power? What would feel good right now? What do I feel inspired to do right now? And trusting that and moving forward. And that's directly how the authenticity piece, it's critical to healing. If we don't choose that authenticity, as scary as it can be, and with all the consequences that might be attached to it, right? If we don't choose that, then what's happening is we're stuck in the old paradigm, and the issues that we're having are going to get
Yeah.
worse and
Yeah.
worse and worse and worse until you either shift up or shift out. You're going to
Mhm.
develop a disease that you die from, or you're going to, quite frankly, kill yourself.
Yeah.
So make the decision. For me, it was very, very real in every moment of, do I want to live or do I want to die? Right.
Yes.
And
Right.
and for me, it's very literal that some thoughts are life and death. If I
Mm-hmm.
do this, I'm gonna heal in some way. I'm gonna manifest in some way, right? If I think this, I'm going to spiral down and I'm going to shift out. If I realize something's coming up to be healed, right? Like recently, things that have been coming up for me to heal have been like the absolute torture I experienced in the mental health
Yeah.
um, institutions, right? Um, if and sexual abuse, right? Those are my things that I'm working on right now. So if those things are in my awareness and I don't be brave enough to dig into that and work through it, I know now my body will manifest some sort of something that will force me to
Right.
do it. So I
Right.
I would rather um I would rather like do the hard work. And like I was talking to a client the other day, Um, sometimes, there is, when we're talking about follow the joy, follow what brings relief.
Yeah.
We're on the precipice of healing these really tough things, right? Um, there may be fear there. There may be apprehension there. There may be the feeling even of like, oh, I really don't want to do this. But under that or over that, overall, I do want to do it. I
Yeah.
have the feeling of when I look at those two thoughts of not working with that and
Hmm.
working with it, although it's going to be although it can be difficult, ultimately brings me relief. And I'm really excited to see who I am on the other side of shifting through that because I know I'll be different. I know I'll be able to offer more, I'll be able to help more, which is, a huge goal of mine. And I know I'll manifest more awesome things, So it we got to be brave.
Yes.
You don't got to be anything. You can do whatever you want. Do what you want. Be authentic. Do what
Yeah.
you want, right? Just because if we don't nail it this time, we're going to nail it other times, Understand that you came here for a very special purpose.
Right.
You matter. You matter more than you know. Your thoughts matter, your feelings matter, what happened to you mattered, and you deserve to be seen, loved, and validated. But first it has to happen from inside. First we have to see, love,
Hmm.
and validate ourselves, and then we can receive it from
Yeah.
outside.
Gosh, and just you saying that you matter, just it just there's just layers to that because you matter, right? But also you're matter. You are matter. Your feelings are matter. Your emotions are you matter, and that's why you matter is because you matter. You know what I mean? So
Because even if you never tell anyone the work that you're doing on yourself, you doing the shifts to raise your vibration, to become lighter, to heal, that ripples out, you guys. Like that really ripples out. And then suddenly the neighbor is like, you know, I think I want to pay more attention to what I'm eating. Or,
yeah,
oh, maybe I want to go see a healer, or maybe I want to look at codependency. Like it ripples out. Even if you never say anything, you
yeah,
matter. You are raising the vibration. You are the superhero. You are the superhero. And so I just want to encourage you to believe in yourself. I
yeah,
want to encourage you to be brave. I want you to reach out when you need support because you deserve support and it's available. I want to encourage you to experiment with your life, to apply these suggestions and just see how your life changes. If it doesn't make it better in any way, like because again, you might apply these things and your outer world might, excuse my language, but get fucked. Like
yeah. It could rock the boat a little.
yeah, because maybe that sends you into the purge, and that's
Yeah,
kind of where everything that no longer serves you just falls away. But even that is happening for you, right? But you're going to feel so much better inside, and I promise you, it feels so much better to follow your own authenticity. And when people are shaming or rejecting or doing their thing, first looking, where am I shaming and rejecting myself? Where am I abandoning myself? Where am I criticizing myself? This is a reflection of my own reality inside. Shifting that and following what brings you that relief and that joy. And when you do that, when you actually in your moment do the process of bringing yourself present and finding what it is and shifting it and working through it and releasing it, please celebrate every step of the way because that it's like piggybacking that vibrational scale. If I go from shame to anger, somebody else might say anger's not a high emotion, but it's a high emotion if I'm down shaming myself all the time. So I'm going to get angry and then I'm going to celebrate that I got angry. And then
mhm,
there I go up the scale. right? So
Yeah.
celebrate every step. Oh, look at me. I brought myself present. I was feeling really anxious. I was worrying. My brain was spinning out. And then I did the steps of bringing myself present, which first you're going to, where are your feet?
Yeah.
Around me, name what's around you. Here's this cabinet is brown, this light switch is black. I have a there's a Batman thing figure there, like, naming things around you. Here's my computer, and then going one more up and name what you love, because you can't find a solution from the same place a problem was created. You need an elevated perspective. So it's not enough just to bring yourself present, although bringing yourself present will feel better because now you're not spinning out of control. So bring yourself present. Hey, good job. I brought myself present. Oh my goodness. Way to go. Okay. What's around me that I love? Oh, I love this bag. I love this bag. I've had it forever. It says love on it. My kitty is there. I love my kitty. We call this, it is a dolphin, but we call it penguin. So I love my penguin. I love my little stuffy. I've had this for like 20 years now. I love it so much. And I can feel, and you will feel in your body this like, yay, like, yes, right? Because then you're in the realm of love. And then celebrate again. Look, I
Yeah.
raised my vibration again. Way to go, self. I can make myself feel better. I'm so proud of myself. And understand, if that's all you did,
Yeah.
are manifesting a better reality for yourself in the future than you would have been if you were stuck in spin, in fear,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever it is. So celebrate, 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 because you're raising your vibration by shifting into the present moment and shifting into love. And then you can go even higher, right?
Yeah.
And there's more steps after that, but we'll cover those another day.
Well,
Betsy,
yeah, it's just like this is beginning alchemy, right? Like just 101. It's all good. Like basically we have to make these beginning steps a pattern that we follow. We want to try and replace the old patterns that we've had. So,
neuroplasticity.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly.
We can
Yeah.
rewire our brains.
Yeah.
Melinda says, "You ladies get me so excited to work on myself." Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I had to fire heart that one.
that's
That was
right.
awesome.
That's right. I'm excited that you're excited because, again, you working on yourself
Yeah,
saves the world. You
that's
raise
exciting.
your vibration, even raises my vibration,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. I'm even more excited now that she's excited. I'm so excited.
There we go. Build it up,
Yeah.
Betsy says, plus, we don't know sometimes how much better we make other people's lives, help them just by being ourselves. I wish I could see myself through those who genuinely love me, or impact on others, not even try. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, like, real quick before we hop off here. Uh, that understanding, that message came through when I was in a phase of my life where I had been in bed, curtains drawn, couldn't move, literally like army crawling to the bathroom because I had this insane migraine that if I stood up or did anything, I genuinely thought I was going to have a stroke. I don't know what it was. It's the most bizarre thing. Um, which actually I haven't had one of those migraines since that first BQH session. I just
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Um, and so I had been in bed and I was really slipping into stinking thinking. And I was just like, what good am I? What kind of a parent am I? What kind of a partner am I? Like, what is my purpose? I can't even get out of bed. What am I doing? And my guides came in and they said, because while I was laying there, I wasn't sleeping all of the time. I just couldn't move without intense pain. So my guides were bringing in memories that I was processing. My guides are bringing in thoughts that I was like contemplating. Like whenever a thought came in and I needed to shift it, I would shift it and raise it and find the thought that brought relief. And I was doing all this like mental stuff. And so when I was like, oh, I'm not, I'm worthless. That was what I was feeling. I felt like I was worthless because I couldn't do anything. And that's when my guides came in and said, You have no idea how much you're shifting your reality and other people's reality. You are doing the work to energetically shift, and that's rippling out through the entire apartment complex. And you are changing people's lives just by laying in bed, choosing to be present, even though it's painful, and choosing to shift that perspective into something that feels better over and over and over again. So, yeah, just be yourself. And that might look, especially if you have ADHD, that's going to look different every 5 minutes. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
because again, like, especially I want to say on the ADHD topic, it is by me following my inspiration, which took me here, then took me here, then took me here. And a lot of people judged it and they said I couldn't stay focused and there was something wrong with me and I was never going to amount to anything because I couldn't stay focused. Well,
Yeah.
what I was doing was, first of all, raising my vibration by doing something that I was interested in, right? But then I was learning what wasn't what I wanted to do, right? Oh, this is what I want to do. Oh, no, that's not it. Oh, this is what I want to do. Oh, that's not it. This is what I want to do. Oh, that was fun, but that's not it. Right. And then by me doing that and by me allowing that space, I found the work that I do now. And I just, I don't want to say I could not be happier because I would love to be happier. And I
Yeah.
want that in and I am work, I want to expand so I'm not going to say that, but I never imagined that I could feel so happy and fulfilled with what I'm doing. I create currency and abundance doing what I genuinely love doing. And
Yeah.
the only way I found that was by all of these things, going wherever, trusting the intuition, trusting the process, trusting the inspiration to find what I'm doing. So I want to encourage you to just do that and let other people have their judgments. It has nothing to do with you. Ah,
I also I just want to add that like all those other things weren't even wasted time because here we are to expand and experience and you had so many expansions, so many experiences. How
yep.
cool.
Yeah. And that, that leads to the understanding that we are always successful.
Yeah.
There's, there might be something you want to achieve that you haven't achieved yet, but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean you're not successful. We are all more successful than we imagined because our whole purpose of being in this reality is to have an experience, and then that experience is reported back to source and source expands, and we have an experience and then source expands, and we have an experience and source expands. That's the whole purpose of us little fractals coming out having these experiences. And so
Mhm.
even when like things were rotten, even when
Yeah.
things were just like really crappy, I would sit there and I would go, well, I'm having an experience, so
Right.
I'm doing what I came here to do. Good job. Good job, self. So
Well, that was an experience.
experience. Oh, I don't know if I want to have that experience again, but I had an
That's
experience.
what
I was successful. I am successful. And as you activate that more, I am successful, I am successful, I am successful, the more
I,
your outer reality will reflect that you are successful in all kinds of ways. So,
right.
okay. Betsy says, I love you, Jess. You continue to inspire me. And Joey now too. I love you both so much. Yes, we love you. We love you. Thank you for expanding with us. Thank you for being the superheroes. Thank you for being brave. Thank you for sticking with us on this very long live. And we just love you so much. And we're so deeply, deeply grateful that you are here. And
Yes.
you will join us next time. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. And
Please.
we love you.
Yes. Thank you so much. Aw.
Okay, I ended it and it cut